Welcome everyone to Let's Talk Cross-Chain episode with Etherspot and KlimaDAO, our friends who we've built the MVP for swap, bridge, and stake in one transaction, the new primitive in DeFi, if you will. So without further ado, I want to thank everyone for joining, and we can slowly start the conversation, I guess. So to start, can you, all three of you, Tresink and Michael, please introduce yourself and talk a bit about like what you do in the respective project that you represent?
Sure, of course. Hey guys, I'm Akshay. I'm from India. I do business development at LI.FI. I joined LI.FI almost 10 months back, and I've also been involved in multiple roles inside LI.FI. And I'm a region. I use LI.FI to go to multiple chains and explore multiple tabs. Yeah, that's me.
Nice.
Hi guys, I'm Riku. I'm not Trising actually. I'm actually the community manager at KlimaDAO, and it was really lucky enough. I was lucky enough to come across this project at the onstart of it, and just at the pre-launch, really excited, and I really love the vision of KlimaDAO, and ever since then I've been diving into deep the whole KlimaDAO and the carbon market eco space, and yeah, here I am today to do this.
Beautiful.
Cool. I am Michael. I'm from a finance and technology background, and I work for Pillar. I'm the CEO of Pillar. And I talk about Pillar because Pillar is the company that launched Etherspot. It's one of our marquee products, and Etherspot was born through necessity for our own usage when we were utilizing it in our wallet. So we were set up in 2017. So I've seen all the ups and downs. So a second crypto winter isn't something that I haven't seen before. So that's me.
That's awesome. So this is kind of the second time you can do it better, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope I put all the learnings that I've seen to use.
Yeah, we all hope that.
And so the first one was a big fit, so hopefully we'll make it through and in a bigger and better shape to the next one.
So before I go to a second question, I'd like to ask you, so what was the necessity that brought up the Etherspot?
The necessity that brought up Etherspot was around 2018, we decided to go to a smart wallet because we had a key-based wallet when we launched the Pillar in 2017. So once we did that, we discovered, then we timed it at the same time, it was with the gas prices going up and etc. So through that, we decided, okay, let's package all this together, which is the smart contract technology side. Because at that point, we had the first layer 2 gas feeless payment within the Pillar wallet. So we wanted to say, okay, let's separate this functionality from the wallet app. The wallet app is just another subscriber to our service. So really, Etherspot was born out of our experimentation on layer 2 in early 2019.
Oh, that's beautiful. So basically, best products come from solving a problem, right?
Exactly. Because it is unfortunate we didn't make a good use of our layer 2 technology. Then we didn't communicate it well enough, and also it was our token was plugged into it, so it was another barrier for everyone to adapt it. But all those became a learning point. Even the optimization of the smart contract, how to register them, quite a lot of details that go into it, was a learning experience, which we've deployed it onto this one.
Beautiful. So this is kind of an entree to the second question, which now you explained. If there's something else you'd like to add after the guys finish, but the second question would be to introduce the project for our listeners that might not know about LI.FI or Etherspot or KlimaDAO. I'd like to ask the speakers to give us an elevator pitch and why we should be interested in the respective projects. We can start with Klima, I guess. I'm very eager as well to hear a lot about that.
Definitely. I think in this time and age, I believe that or rather, I think we can definitely see that climate change is the number one solution of our generation. So what KlimaDAO does is actually to leverage the opportunities that are presented by Web3 to be able to deliver immediate and tangible positive impacts for the climate. We as a protocol is able to give Web3 builders and users the opportunity to participate in the carbon market through the Klima token, which is fungible and it's backed by at least one verified carbon unit in our treasury. And of course, holders of the token will have the ability to vote on our policies as well. So the idea of it in overall, it's that over time we will actually build an economy around Klima by driving adoption and unlocking the growth of the crypto carbon economy. Or in short, if you put it in another way, the time by the time we succeed is the time we have effectively fight climate change.
Beautiful. So what you're saying is you're basically canceling every argument that crypto is bad for environment.
Yes, in a way. I give just to really add on what you just mentioned. One of our biggest partners is one of our partners as well. So effectively, and they just recently did an offset their entire chain. So if you look at it, the carbon neutral block protocol, or rather network right now, it's actually Polygon, and we see it in Polygon. And if you look at what Polygon has been doing, releasing, really propelling NFT projects in NFTs, and this has been a topic that's been, said so many times that NFTs are bad for the environment. When you launch a product, or rather launch an NFT in Polygon network, effectively, you can almost say that it's carbon neutral in that sense. But of course, we do have a really long list of NFT partners that work with us to make sure that their projects are not just carbon neutral, but carbon positive.
Beautiful. Who's taking the stage? Akshay?
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah. So, about LI.FI, right? Like LI.FI is a cross-chain bridge and DEX aggregator. We have more than 9 bridges and 15 DEXs across 15 chains, and we help users move liquidity from one blockchain to other blockchain to the best route possible. But why DEXs? DEXs because we also aggregate DEXs because bridges only support a few assets like stable coins or ETH. Through DEXs, we can fully support any to any swaps, so that the user does not have to go to DEXs again on the destination chain to swap again. But yeah, so we also offer this entire product as an SDK and widget so that other projects can integrate into their websites to help them as well. But yeah, and also if you're a region like me, yeah, you chains just like go to transfer to .xyz and bridge to the chain that you want to go to, and yeah, just have fun.
Cheeky. Nice. Love it.
Cool. I suppose it's me next.
Yes.
Okay. Etherspot is a smart contract framework which has a wallet underneath it that allows you to do cross-chain communication on pretty much all EVM chains. I think we are available in 8 9 EVM chains, including Arbitrum and Optimism. And pretty much every week we are adding new EVM chains. So the whole point being, if for any project who wants to go multi-chain, you can utilize, as long as you exist in one of the EVM chains, you no longer have to bother to deploy your services on yet another EVM chain, maintain it there, maintain the liquidity. You no longer have to do that. You can use Etherspot in with Lee Finance to easily solve the cross-chain. Because one of the issues that we see is multi-chain and cross-chain are crisscrossed with each other. Multi-chain, pretty much the current implementation means you have to deploy your project on every EVM chain, on every side chain. That is different to cross-chain, where you can deploy it on one and get the traffic from all the others. So Etherspot is a framework, which is an SDK that allows you to do that. And it's got a lot of things under the covers as well, which you can experiment with. You can even have a gasless payment transaction, integration with bots, quite a lot of things. But the use case, which is easily to highlight, is the one I've mentioned, cross-chain in such an easy fashion.
That's amazing, and your answer kind of leads me to the third question, which is for Akshay, basically to elaborate a bit more on the tech itself. Uh, how does it exactly work? What project does what part of the technology? And how does it differ from current offerings on the market?
I think it's best if Akshay starts it, because the LI.FI work is in front in the flow. So I will carry on after that.
And of course. So as Michael mentioned, right, there are two things, multi-chain and cross-chain. So for example, if you take a project like KlimaDAO, right, so they're deployed on Polygon, and if they want to expand to other chains as well, they would have to deploy the same contracts on multiple chains. So they will be going multi-chain. But instead, what they have chosen to do is like they've chosen to use LI.FI and Etherspot, through which they can actually get users from Ethereum chains to Polygon chain, to the smart contracts on Polygon, to offset carbon, or to stake Klima, etc. So how does it work? So as I mentioned earlier, like Dexes, and we have Dexes and bridges, and we do this because user needs to do swapping, bridging, swapping, and these three actions, right? So they like we batch these three transactions in LI.FI, but with Etherspot, we also batch the transaction that they will be doing on the decision chain after bridging and swapping. So with LI.FI and Etherspot, users can actually cross-chain batch whatever action that they want to take. So for example, KlimaDAO offset carbon on Polygon, and they have money on, let's say, BSC, right? So usually they would have to go through, like, I think, sign 9, 10 transactions to actually bridge to Polygon, stake Klima, and then offset Klima again. So we would actually be just batching these transactions into just 3 transactions. The user would need to just sign thrice, and yeah, it would be just taken care of Etherspot. And but another new thing that we have come up with is actually, doing this without actually switching RPC. So like RPC switching is one of the most annoying parts of MetaMask, because yeah, for if you want to use a different DAB on a different EVM chain, you'd have to switch again and again, and it reloads your page as well. Like this whole UI UX actually just like improved by 10x by Etherspot and LI.FI, because Etherspot supports this signing transactions on any EVM chains without actually switching RPC. And yeah, I feel like it's a game changer. And I think like most tabs should actually use this stack to go cross chain instead of just deploying their contracts on every chain in the EVM space.
So what's their main benefit? So is it like capital efficiency, dev band wise, to go cross chain instead of multi chain? Like a lot more dependencies. What's the main kind of selling point?
That's a fantastic question because yeah. So for example, let's say if Klima wants to go multi-chain, they would have to deploy the Klima contract on all the chains out there. Also provide liquidity on all the chains out there as well. Hey, Michael, can you mute your mic because there's some noise.
Sorry, will do.
Yeah. Yeah. So Klima, so they would have to deploy their token on all the chains that they want to support and provide liquidity as well as maintain liquidity on all these chains and maintain smart contracts on all these chains, which is just a hassle, right? It does not have to be that way. And most projects are not actually going to do that because it just doesn't make sense. So instead, they can use bridges and dexes, like our stack pretty much, to just be on one chain, but still be present on all the chains as well.
That's amazing. Just have to mention we got Ritaka as well as a speaker from KlimaDAO. He's the marketing lead there. So hi Ritaka. So you can
Hey,
also hop
Hey,
in. Just to mention, so you also ask each other question to make conversational if any of you are interested in like certain aspects of your respective project. Um,
and for sure, I mean, if I could jump in to follow up from what Akshay said, which is 100% spot on in terms of the sort of the value proposition and the unique benefit of what the LI.Fi and Etherspot are enabling Klima to do. I mean, KlimaDAO has built up the deepest carbon liquidity on chain and even off chain in the traditional carbon credit and carbon offset market. So this has been something that has taken Klima 6 months to do, and it's by far the market leader in this respect. The amount of work and and the sort of unique position that KlimaDAO has set up on Polygon with all these liquidity pools, extremely attractive for companies and individuals to come on to the blockchain and use the KlimaDAO pools to acquire carbon and to offset carbon because the slippage is so low. It's really the cheapest way in terms of transaction costs and also the fastest way to offset your carbon footprint as an organization. The traditional way that this is done is via over-the-counter trades. It's done in a very it's intermediated by brokers. So what blockchain has done is it's enabled this automated, seamless way of transacting with carbon as an asset. Now what LI.Fi and Etherspot enables Klima to do is to bring the whole universe of EVM chains and users onto Polygon in order to benefit from this liquidity, which is really a public good that KlimaDAO holds and offers to the global market. And the issue is, or at least it's not even an issue, rather the opportunity is that on Polygon, because Polygon has already retired over 100,000 tons of carbon using, which compensates for all of their historical footprint. Any historical NFT mint or transaction or anything like that on Polygon is already carbon neutral. And in addition, because Polygon is such an energy efficient blockchain, minting an NFT, for example, consumes less than a gram of carbon. So if you're minting on Polygon or if you're building a project on Polygon, fantastic. You're already historically carbon neutral. And going forwards, Polygon is committing to continue to offset their footprint, which means that your project is already got a head start. You're carbon neutral. The thing is, this doesn't apply to most other chains, and especially not Ethereum. On Ethereum, for example, if you mint an NFT, that releases 150 kilograms of carbon. And that's a huge amount compared to the tiny, sub-gram level of emissions on the Polygon network. So when you're minting on Ethereum, these considerations become really valid real life considerations for you as a business. Suppose that you're a ticketing platform that helps events offer tickets to attendees, and these tickets are NFTs. This is a very valid use case of why you'd want to use an NFT. The problem is, and we've had a lot of conversations like these with ticketing providers. Their customers say, "Why should I buy an NFT ticket? I'm doing something that's bad for the environment." So now the thing is, all of this carbon liquidity and your ability to offset your footprint is there on Polygon. But how do I bridge across? Do I need to set up and connect the RPC? Do I need to buy some Matic and all of this? What LI.FI and Etherspot does is it just eliminates this whole entire consideration and thought process. Any NFT project or any project on Ethereum or any of these other EVM compatible chains is able to just go to the Klima app. For now, we've only got the cross-chain staking function live, and we will soon bring the cross-chain offsetting function live as well. Go to the Klima app, click through to LI.FI and Etherspot, and then submit your transaction. And then in just a matter of minutes, without having to have clicked more than twice, really, you have offset carbon. And this has gone through with a fast speed and low transaction cost that without having to jump across chains. So this opens the whole universe of EVM projects to come onto Polygon and to take advantage of this deep liquidity that KlimaDAO has built out.
That's amazing. Like, there's a lot of even IRL stuff that are kind of blocked because of the issues of, like you said, people not wanting to use the products because they're concerned about ecology stuff. So just for our listeners, a thought came to my mind. Do you have on Klima's side or know where we can go and like count or calculate our carbon footprint and basically offset ourselves and our expenditure a year, or kind of how do we know how much should we offset if we want to like be at net zero with the environment, if you will?
Yes, super question. Being net zero means basically compensating for your calculated emissions, and then you can even go climate positive, which means that you go over and above that. And by going climate positive, you basically drive, if you offset with KlimaDAO, when you retire those credits, that drives funding to projects that are mitigating climate change, whether it's planting trees or investing in renewable energy to drive that carbon neutral energy. Now, so the way to do that is it depends on where you're coming from. It's actually super easy if you are a smart contract based product. For example, if you're an NFT project, all you would have to do is connect to one of our partners. So we have Offsetra, who run the carbon.fyi calculator, for example. So if you go to carbon.fyi, you can just drop in your contract address for your project, and then that will already calculate the carbon footprint based on all of your past historic data. It takes a couple of seconds for you to for it to spit that information out, and you now have an understanding of your carbon footprint. This is going to be a lot bigger if you're on Ethereum, for example. If you're on Polygon, it's actually tiny. Carbon.fyi for now is connected to mainnet, but we've actually produced a climate positive NFT guide on the KlimaDAO blog, which you can also check out. there we share that super low footprint for any Polygon-based transaction. So if you're on Polygon, you basically can just say, okay, I'm gonna go climate positive immediately because my footprint is so low. But if you're on mainnet, go to carbon.fyi, for example, to calculate your footprint. Once you do that, once you know your footprint, you can go to KlimaDAO, the KlimaDAO app. So that would be app.klimadao.finance. And you can use the offsetting tool there. You can use USDC, you can use carbon tokens, and you can also use Klima in order to swap for the amount of carbon that you want to retire. And very soon, as mentioned, thanks to the LI.FI and Etherspot guys, you guys, we will be having a this experience will also be cross-chain. So not only will you go when you go to the KlimaDAO app, you won't have to be connected to the Matic network. You'll be able to from any network. That's easy. One other thing I suggest to check out is if you go to loveletter.klimadao.finance. This is probably one of the most straightforward ways to go through that experience, which is basically we've presented the offsetting experience as something that's very very concrete. Basically, whenever you retire carbon, you're able to include a message with your transaction. So let's say that let's say I went to carbon.fyi. Carbon.fyi told me that my Ethereum wallet has spent 5 tons worth of or emitted 5 tons worth of carbon. So now I know I want to offset 5 tons. What I do is I go to the loveletter.klimadao.finance page, and there, clicking through, I'm able to write a message. I'm able to say, okay, like this is to, I can dedicate this to someone, I can dedicate it to myself, I can dedicate it to my business. Writing a message, and when I hit that submit transaction button, that message gets logged on the Polygon blockchain along with the carbon tonnage. And so it's kind of like a little time capsule or like a letter to the planet way of memorializing your transaction that will then get put up onto the love letter page. So it's a really cool way for projects actually to get some exposure there as well.
Yeah, I bet, and for the individuals as well, like it's something that stays written on the chain that they did, like is a good thing to the world, right?
100%. Yeah, I mean, like there's someone here you can see they offset 50 years of their personal emissions. So they would have calculated that, using something like an average number that, someone in the US on average emits about 6 carbon tons, or maybe 12 or maybe 16 carbon tons per year. And then they would have multiplied that by 50. So that's another way to do it. Very soon we'll be launching integrated calculator, an integrated calculator flow. So you'll be able to say, okay, I'm a corporate or I'm an individual. Coming through that that calculator, you'll be able to give some inputs like, okay, generally I travel on business, or I drive a car or something like that. You go through that funnel, and then it will give you an approximation of your emissions footprint.
That's amazing. Can't wait for that. So the next question I'd like to know is more for the tech side. Like, how did you guys get to the idea, Akshay and Michael, of creating the product? Like, how, on top of that, how long did it take you from conceiving the idea to actually shipping the product out?
I think Akshay reached out to us on our Discord sometime in April or early May, and he said, guys, we can leverage our technology and we can work with each other. And we looked at it, and we then, I think, as a group decided, why don't we do it for Klima, because they stand to benefit from this. And it was a pretty quick turnaround, to be honest with you, because all the building blocks were there. It is just us to understand what we can both offer and how we can utilize it and deliver it together. But if I just add one thing, based on what Akshay and Rikta said, they gave us fascinating insights. But if you don't mind, for the listeners, let me just give you a simple use case and how the journey goes, so that you can visualize how the technology hangs together, if that's okay.
Of course. Can't wait.
Let's say I'm this guy that Rikta drew us in terms of this guy who wants to do my carbon offset. Then I'm very environmentally conscious, and I only have some AVAX in Avalanche. And they said, okay, I want to offset X amount of dollars worth of my AVAX. And let's assume that there is no LI.FI, there is no Etherspot in here. So it means, okay, let me bridge my tokens, because I need to bridge my token to Polygon. And I go and bridge it. Awesome, I'm just halfway there. Then let me just stake my Klima and offset the carbon. Then, oh, I need to buy me some Klima. Okay, I try to buy it, and my MetaMask says, oh, insufficient funds, because I didn't really buy some Matic. So I have to go buy some Matic. Then, with that Matic, that would be used as a gas for me to buy the Klima. Then I have to stake. So that's what Akshay was alluding to. When you have to sign 9 times, you have to go through these processes manually. So you really, really must be committed to do your carbon offset. Now, with this solution that we have, say again, I'm this guy who's on Avalanche and I'm trying to do the carbon offset. I click on, say, do your carbon offset on Klima. At the same time, a widget comes up that allows me to bridge my token from AVAX to Polygon, and this widget is powered by LI Finance. Then as soon as that happens, as soon as the bridging happens, then in the background, a smart wallet is created for me, which is controlled by my MetaMask wallet or any other key wallet I have used. Then from here onwards, every transaction is batched, meaning bundled together. So I no longer have to do it manually. I do not need to go and get me the Matic myself. It would be handled for me. I do not need to go out and get me the Klima myself. It would be handled for me. I do not need even to bother to stake the Klima and get the S Klima myself. It would be done for me. So this is the whole point, the automation. So the beneficiaries are really 2 parts. Projects benefit because they can source liquidity. Projects benefit because they do not have to spend their time and resources in deployment on other side chains and maintain liquidity on those, just like Klima don't want to do that in every chain. Users benefit from the usability that this gives them. Instead of doing it 9 times, you will just do away with 3 times. Imagine, let's say there was this scenario. Once I get this S Klima, there was another vault. I can deposit my S Klima to get more percentage returns in terms of APY returns. Now, that can also be handled for me in the batch. So as a user, all I want is I have some money, invest, click. As a user, all I want to do is I want to just offset my carbon. I do not want to know about the implementation details of the blockchains or any other service. I just want to consume it.
Yeah, or the technology of the bridges, or which bridge to use, or what token do you need for that bridge, or like, and a plethora of different things that at least new users in the space don't even understand how it works. So it's definitely top-notch abstraction for majority of the user base.
Exactly, especially when we go to another crypto winter, usability matters, because a lot of the user base we had in the last bull market were based on hype. Now, quite a lot of them might just be a little bit shy to use it. So we can attract them by having a comparable usability to Web2 services. Hence, we have to up our games, collaborate with each other.
Yeah, and also as product builders, we should understand that most users don't actually go through this trouble to actually use the tab, right? Like even I have so many tabs here. I opened in, and I mean so many tabs in my browser that I just open and I just give up. I have given up in one of these like nine transactions that I had to do. So just LI.FI and Etherspot just makes the whole onboarding experience much easier, so that the drop-off rate of your new users is like much lesser.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the question more for the KlimaDAO guys. So when did you hear about the new cross-chain feature? Because from what I've heard is it was planned like for you in a way, not with you, created. And how do you see that product playing out for your user base and adoption? Like especially once it's like fully within your UI, like a native type of dApp on your site.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak
Yeah,
for like the community and the team. Ultimately, it's always our engineers who are with new tech, and they're the ones who introduce this stuff to the broader community. But this is exactly how like we as a community found out about it, which was like, this is something that you guys are building, and it's just like the whole. There's been since KlimaDAO's sort of since the founding days, there was always this question of when cross chain and when when does Klima and when does ReFi, when does Carbon become available to other chains and the users of other chains. And this was always there's always a trade-off there, because the amount of capital that needs to go into setting up the deep enough liquidity pools in order for a proper liquid carbon market to exist, which is ultimately what KlimaDAO is incentivizing: a liquid, deeply liquid carbon market that enables highly efficient price discovery, highly efficient consumption of carbon offsets. Like, how do we achieve that across chain? And so when Archie and our engineering team shared this with the rest of the DAO and the community, the way that they presented it was, here is our solution. Like, we were looking at how do we go cross chain, but actually cross chain has come to us. And I mean, that was like super exciting for us, because it really fast tracks and like, it really fast tracks our ability to go cross chain. And this is especially valuable now. Like, liquidity is such a valuable commodity in the bear market, and we don't need to do anything. We don't need to splinter that. We don't need to put that across different chains, because it can all stay on Polygon, and then the users can come onto Polygon. I mean, the transactions are already so cheap, so once they're on there, they love it. It's just there's always that hurdle, to get on there. I mean, what you mentioned, or what you were asking there around the the deeper integration. So for sure, this is a top priority for us because, like I mentioned, projects on Polygon already, they already have a head start thanks to what Polygon has done. So they've offset their historical emissions. They've also committed $20 million as part of a green fund, which basically any project that's building on Polygon to do with sustainability can get support from Polygon as part of that $20 million fund. So Polygon is very progressive in this, and that's fantastic. So there's not that much work for us to do there. We want to work with all projects on Polygon and co-market. Like we want to help them show their audience and their users that they are already carbon neutral. We want to help them go climate positive. But the real tonnage in terms of how many projects are going to come and consume a lot of carbon tons through offsets, this is going to come from other EVM chains, and most especially from Ethereum. So from mainnet, because that's where because of proof of work, there's a big there's a big historical footprint there. Like every transaction is very energy intensive. So for us, for the next steps of our app, this is super important, and this is going to enable. KlimaDAO has a product that impacts the real world, like whether it's legacy companies, whether it's Web2 companies, whether it's Web3 companies. For them to come on chain makes total sense because becoming carbon neutral and becoming climate positive is cheaper on chain. It's more efficient on chain. It's faster on chain. And
more
LI.FI
transparent as well, right? Like
100%. Yeah. I mean, for sure, right? Because what you can do is whenever you offset a project, you can follow the data trail all the way down to the actual project vintage, meaning when was that carbon credit issued, where is this project, how much tonnage is that project capable of mitigating in terms of emissions. You can go all the way into the registry. So these credits are verified carbon credits from the Vera registry. So you can follow the URL and see the Vera link. Like, so the transparency, like, spot on. That is like a very unique value proposition. It's speed, it's transparency, it's cost efficiency, and there's a real-time price feed for carbon. Like, you know how much a base carbon ton costs because of the way that it's trading through the sushi swap pools. You know how much all these different carbon tons cost, and this doesn't exist, believe it or not, in the traditional carbons. You cannot get a real-time price quote for carbon. It doesn't work, and that's because of the way that there's no liquid market for it. So this on-chain innovation is something that I'm super bullish about. Like, I can totally see that more and more projects come, and the first is, and this is what a lot of the other members of KlimaDAO often say, is that we can see that crypto will become the first carbon neutral industry as a whole industry. It's going to be the first because crypto has this unjustified stigma. Like, the carbon of blockchains aren't actually that high compared to things like washing machines and dryers and household appliances. They really aren't that high.
Or water to that matter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's exactly. So it's actually quite ridiculous. But because of all this FUD and all of this, this tougher wall for crypto projects to climb, we see a lot of engagement and willingness from crypto projects to come and say, okay, I'm gonna offset my footprint. I'm gonna become carbon neutral. I mean, the sort of direction, like with the merge coming for ETH mainnet, that's already gonna slash their carbon emissions by 99%, which is fantastic. But there's still the historical footprints to contend with, and that's how the that's how carbon works. We have a carbon budget globally, which means we cannot emit more than X amount of carbon in the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And unfortunately, we have been emitting too much. So what we need to do is we need to compensate for that. And the way we compensate for that is by offsetting. And the way we offset is coming on chain. And the way we come on chain is, let's say we're already on ETH, let's say we're already on AVAX, you simply use LI.FI and you get on to KlimaDAO in one click, and there you're done.
Gotcha. I have one additional question though. So you mentioned like the mainnet being kind of the largest gas guzzler in a way. So in comparison to like other EVM compatible chains, they're insignificant to mainnet. But that look for example, like Solana, which like Solana's scalability depends on the hardware. So the hardware is going to get more and more demanding, spend more electricity and stuff like that. Is there like any benchmark that compares those two?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there have been studies done on this, although not something that KlimaDAO has done specifically. But this is definitely one thing that we try to do. So when we were discussing with Polygon back in the early days before they actually ended up offsetting, KlimaDAO worked together with Offsetra in order to perform an emissions analysis of Polygon, and that needed what needed to be done there was to look at things like how many transactions are checkpointing with the ETH mainnet, and transactions in general. What about the nodes that Polygon operates? So this is an in-depth analysis, and because blockchains are quite new, there isn't a lot of analysis out there, and a lot of it that we have to actually break ground with and work together with partners like Offsetra in defining this. The other analysis that we've done, if you go to the KlimaDAO blog and you write Polygon and Chia, we looked at the Chia blockchain, which is one of the blockchains that which positions itself as like a green blockchain. And it said it's like a green version of Bitcoin because it's not using proof of work, it's using a consensus mechanism called proof of space and time. And so what we did there is, again, we looked at all the different factors, like what you said, right? You have to look into the hardware. So what we found was that there's a significant carbon footprint generated by the Chia hardware. And as these hard disks are retired and they get old, they have to be swapped out. There's also an e-waste issue. Like these have to be thrown away. So this is what we call embodied carbon. How much do these drives actually embody in terms of carbon footprint? And then as the network scales, more storage space is required, which means more data is required to be used, more hard drives are required, and that basically means that as the network scales, the carbon footprint just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. So as a comparison, we looked at Chia in its sort of current level as having roughly double the carbon emissions of Polygon on an annual basis. But when the merge happens, the Polygon footprint is going to become like tiny. But if Chia continues to scale, it can become significantly heavier in terms of footprint. So Solana specifically, we haven't done. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Continue. Finish.
No, I was just going to say that Solana specifically we haven't looked at, or at least yet. But definitely when there's hardware involved, there are other factors to consider.
It's probably in the similar boat like Chia. Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, how long does the typical analysis take? And also, do you guys take into consideration the amount of manpower involved in a company? Say, for instance, if a certain company has 1,000 people working for them, the way they get into work, whether they're driving, they take public transport, those kind of things, are they part of the consideration?
Yeah, super question. So these would come into more traditional emissions analysis. They have that have different scopes. So you have like scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emissions, scope 3 emissions, and the broader you go out in terms of the scope, it means that you're looking at broader parts. So these are used in traditional emissions analysis. Let's say that you're a manufacturing company, and then you want to see, okay, how much you're actually producing on, or how much carbon you're actually emitting on site, and then you would look at, okay, but what about those trucks that supply me my raw materials? And then you would go even deeper down the value chain, and then you'd identify how much is the whole entire carbon footprint. In the case of Polygon, we were looking at their their direct on-chain emissions, which are low, and then we were and their hardware, and then beyond that, what we looked at the Ethereum blockchain as well. So given that Polygon needs to checkpoint with Ethereum, it's kind of like, and you'd have to ask, like, for example, Oxymoron and Dionysus, who are real carbon experts on the in the DAO. But what I believe they said that this is kind of the equivalent of a scope 2, what we looked at with Polygon, or perhaps even a scope 3, because a lot of these emissions are not actually being generated by Polygon; they're being inherited by Polygon from the ETH network. I don't believe we looked at the employees of Polygon, although Polygon have offset more their emissions, so they went over and above that. They so far have retired 104,000 tons, and the really cool thing is what they did is some of it they auto retired, which means they just said, okay, I want to retire X amount of tonnage, and let the app do the work for me. And some of it they actually selectively retired, meaning they said, I'm interested in this project in Guatemala, I'm interested in this project in the Amazon rainforest, because I see that adding value. I see this as being a really valuable project. So what they did is they actually selected that specific project and retired it at the contract level, meaning that they can claim that they offset all of that project's specific emissions. And then once they did that, they went over above their 90K tons with around 104, and they're also holding Klima, which they've staked. And what stake Klima does is it, because it has it's a rebasing token. It receives Klima rewards every 7-ish hours. These Klima rewards are, as Reiku said in the beginning, Klima is backed by tokens. So every single time the Klima token accrues these rewards, you are basically going to be able to have a claim over a larger amount of carbon tons. What that means is, suppose Polygon has, like, I don't know, 1,000 stake Klima, then over time, the current yearly reward rate is around 100, 200%. So by the end of the year, if they continue to stake, they're projected to have 2,000 Klima. And if Klima continues to be backed by 2, 3, whatever, how many carbon tons, they'll be able to redeem those carbon tons and then choose to retire them as well. So in this case, Klima is acting as like an accumulator, so that rather than having to purchase new carbon tons, they'll always be able to just use that Klima in order to continue to offset in the future.
I am in awe of you guys at Klima, and I've said it to a few of you from time to time. And this is a typical use case of using the constructs of DeFi, which is more in the first generation. It was about grid, how much money can I make? But to use it on something tangible, environment. So more than the aspects of it. And capitalism is a good thing, but to have more facets to it and use those constructs and do something which is beneficial to everyone in this planet, that is awesome. And obviously we have responsibility in making your lives easier by giving you the right tools and infrastructure to do what you guys are good at. And kudos to you.
Totally aligned. I think this is huge. I think what we're building together is gonna just get more and more adoption. I mean, I'm super excited about it. We're gonna be doing some marketing campaigns around this that we're already preparing for, starting from it within the next 2 weeks or so. So we'll be doing some announcements with Polygon next week, and then once that announcement goes out with Polygon, we want to start pushing this narrative that Polygon is at the center of LI.FI, this new regenerative economy, and that LI.FI and Etherspot are the rails and the sort of tooling that enables Polygon to fulfill this role and become the center of the EVM universe.
Yeah, you guys are basically funneling capitalism to save the environment, which is very, very admirable and rare.
It's
So
interesting times.
Yeah, I have a question for Etherspot and LI.FI, which is, are there any additional things you guys are working on? If it's a secret, you can just nod your head. We're not gonna see it. Or other things you're envisioning that can be solved with partnerships between the two respective projects?
We're always working on things. I mean, every week we are integrating in new EVMs, and obviously I wouldn't be able to tell you specific projects and partnerships, but think of it this way. What if you had one dashboard where you can select any offerings, whether it's API based or being able to stake in any vault from one dashboard where you do not need to switch your network. So as a user, you go in, you happen to be connected to mainnet, but your funds are on, say, Avalanche, and you are staking something on, say, BSC. And as a user, you're not being asked, oh, which can please switch your connection. And this is the RPC. And on the other side, all your funds are available to select from, meaning you can pool your funds from the different side chains you have and send them to the destination service. Can you imagine that kind of service?
This is sounds like a dream.
Yep.
Sign me up for the beta.
That's
Yeah.
what we want to deliver.
Yeah. Keep us in the loop.
Yeah, most definitely we will.
And we're kind of nearing towards the end, so I'll hop in your question. For it's been partially answered by Ritaka, by basically the cross chain part where we talked about. But in general, what like other technological advances are you thinking about that would kind of help you progress further in regenerative finance? It doesn't need to be just cross chain. Anything that's any type of tech. It can even be IRL that can help, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the really interesting pieces, after going cross chain, is going like X chain, like coming on chain. Like, how can we on ramp into the offsetting experience in the most seamless way possible? And sort of, what are the rails that are gonna help this happen? I mean, there's already a lot of on-ramp services. We've partnered with Mobilum, for example, who have built a way for people to use credit card to be routed through the Sushi liquidity pools and then to get Klima. The thing is, though, is, for example, the love letter campaign that we have, loveletter.klimadao.finance. Here, we want to make this as accessible to as many people as possible. And in fact, we've already generated over 150,000 tons of carbon retirements. And that 150,000 tons is significant because there are a lot of Web2 projects like Team Trees, for example, who have planted around 24 million trees. Those trees absorb roughly 150,000 tons too. Or there are like Ren, for example, which has, I think, 200,000 users, if I'm not mistaken. They've or maybe it could be 20K, an order of magnitude lower. Anyway, a huge number of users who have also collectively retired around 140,000 tons. So the KlimaDAO already really democratizes this this carbon offsetting process, but it still hasn't opened the floodgate. And the issue could be that it's just difficult for some people to set up a MetaMask, or it's difficult for some people to get it and just become familiar with crypto. So if there were a way to route, fiat transactions into the KlimaDAO retirement aggregator and enable people to offset without needing to have a crypto wallet at the point of offsetting, and maybe they can have it later. That would be a really awesome advancement in connecting the real world to the on-chain world.
What you're saying, we need to build you a plugin where people can just like KYC themselves in with their credit card.
Yep.
and
he's kind of forcing my hand, really, in terms of saying things. But can you imagine just exactly what you just said? I can use my credit card and go straight into Klima as a user. I don't need to go and get the Klima, but stake it. But in the background, it is done for me. That is what the batching is all about. So this is something we're looking at with fiat on-rampers. So watch this space.
Love it.
Yeah, loving it. Yeah, I think one of the things that we're also looking for, which I also hope to see in the long run as well. It's if you go now to like Google and Google Flights and you just type, for example, from one country to another, for example, say Italy to the States, for example, you actually see that they actually calculate the carbon footprint of itself. Like the ultimate dream is that eventually, like big carbon emitters like airlines and stuff like they are like individuals themselves are able to just do an offset like with a click of a button, through protocols like through like technology that Li.Fi and Etherspot has built, integrating them into our real world, day-to-day expenses. It's just like, for example, you're doing even a credit card transaction. It's like, oh, do you want to just like set your transaction? Things like can be really minor because on every transaction it's so little, but everything collectively adds up and really definitely will definitely have a very massive impact, when it comes to fighting climate change. So that's something that I personally hope to see as well.
Well, the good thing about this market is that now we can all focus on to build it.
Yeah,
Indeed.
I mean, that's the truth. Yeah, this is the time. I think a lot of people are really dejected in the current bear market. I mean, not gonna lie, it has been really brutal. It's probably one of the worst market downturn for a while. But this is a time where we put our heads down and just focus on building, and get ready for the next bull.
I mean, this is an awesome use case. Can you imagine whenever I offset my carbon? And technically, we're not so far away from achieving that, but it requires relationship building. We have to gain the trust of the airliners or the booking agents. Once we showcase a little bit of what we're doing now, I think the three companies involved in here, we can go and make a joint presentation to these guys, because we're not that far away from achieving this, and it would be an awesome use case.
Yeah, definitely. I think the technology is almost there. The use cases are it's really it's like, to me it's like infinity. There's so many ways we can use it. We just need one major probably airline to really buy into this, understand how it works, get in it, and the next thing we have will be a FOMO situation where everyone wants to be part of it. So
well,
yeah,
the way I see it, we have a good way there. We're building the tech. You guys are passionate about it, and I'm fairly certain that you're gonna grow and probably get more and more visibility and more voice. Probably maybe even in the regulation legislative part about stuff like that. So definitely fun times ahead. On that note, I have to say we've got an hour. We've come to the end of the hour. So I have to say thank you to all of our speakers. This was a very I know I've learned a lot. I'm guessing our listeners have too.
Yeah.
If
Just before I wrap this up, I just really want to do a quick shout out. We just dropped our latest episode, the Planet of the Climate, our podcast channel. The episode that we actually sit down and actually have an interview with LI.FI Protocol as well as Etherspot is actually on our Twitter space. Our Twitter account, or you can just follow us on the Planet of the Climate's Twitter account. The podcast is up. So yeah, if you want to hear more about us discussing, finding out more about LI.FI as well as Etherspot, you can definitely check that episode out.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Can I have a quick shout out as well before our marketing guys kill me?
Of course.
Sure.
I have been, because we've just launched our ambassador program today. Well, not the first one, the second one, for all the products that we have: Pillar Wallet, Etherspot, AirDrop Me. So please, if anyone is interested, we have quite benefits and there is a selection process. Please come and join us, etherspot.io, or tweet at us at Etherspot. Thank you.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. And I guess